Okay, we are recording now.
So where are you from, Belle? Except Winter's Edge.
We're gonna have to have a conversation, I guess. I'm Kelly. I'm from here.
Sorry, there's some grunting and groaning and moaning going on over here with the dog, so I'm kind of just keeping it on mute.
Thank you for clarifying. Thank you for clarifying that it's the dogs.
Yes.
So we're getting some heavy rain here today, and he is very, very afraid. He's a 90-pound lab that wants to sit in my lap because it's raining.
Oh, poor baby. Do you have a thunder shirt for him?
I don't. We get him the anti-anxiety pills, and that seems to help a little bit, but it's getting worse and worse and worse. So I think I'm going to end up getting him a thunder shirt.
I've seen people like make thunder shirts for their dogs, like, but I don't know. I wish that would work. I wish that would work for my cats, but that won't work for my cats because they
can swaddle cats like babies.
They don't like it. That is the worst thing ever. It's like you're gonna take them to the vet, and they're like, "No, you were not holding me down."
Yeah, Sagan also resists snuggles.
Mm-hmm.
So now snuggles are only punitive, like when he tries to leave the house without permission or something.
Punitive snuggles.
Punitive snuggles. And like all the kids understand this. So the other day, Ethan was like, "Sagan, get back here! You got punitive snuggles."
I really like your mug. I want a mug like that.
Thank you. I got it from, I will link you to the place because I cannot pronounce it because it has vowels in the wrong place and it's probably Welsh. I ordered this mug and then I got the mug, and then 2 months later I was announced for Laurel.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my SCA heraldry, and the freaking like everybody gets cups with their laurels on it. So now I have to go order a different one. But I won't.
Darn, you can't have too many bugs.
Can you see the sign?
Yes, advanced tunics. Except that your class is mechanics of what is it? It's mechanics.
Yeah. Like, but I couldn't.
It's supposed to be instruction. I put construction, or in construction. I put instruction. We could fix that.
It'll be fine because really it's just going to be you and me and Belle in here. Because now we're 5 minutes in and it's time to start.
Late last night when we made that.
All right, Belle, what do you know about tunic construction and what would you like to know?
So I know how to make a T-tunic, which is just the two cuts. But when it comes to the keyhole neckline and stuff like that, I have no clue, and I struggle to make them, and especially where they don't just look like a tent on somebody. The fitted and the, I guess it's gussets under the arms are a problem, so they end up I just cut them and then they pull and tear, and I don't know what the side pieces are called to make them wider for people like me who are heavy bottomed.
They're called gores, and I'm happy to answer all of those questions for you. Okay, so this handout that I just linked, I wrote this for an SCA class where I talk about different arm scythes in Viking clothing. Arm scythe is the arm's eye, where the tunic shoulder meets over here. So when you're attaching a sleeve to a shoulder hole, that is the arm scythe construction. But the handout is written for like practical sewing, so it should work for all things. And it does go over step-by-step construction of how to make each type of tunic. So if you want to open that, Belle, and then we can.
Oh, Libby is here too, and I'm going to resend that so Libby can see it. I'm going to update the website.
I don't see Libby. There is no Libby.
Libby was
here.
totally in here for like a minute.
Nope, no Libby for you.
Well, whatever then. Fine. No. Anyway, I'm gonna continue.
So if you open that doc that I just sent you, and we're going to look at the first style of tunic, which has flat shoulder seams and underarm gores. And why can I not find the doc now that I have linked it to? There it is. Okay. All right, so it does go over in period, but this is a like straight up how to machine sew this thing. Don't worry about it. What fabrics have you used before, Belle? I'm putting you on the spot a lot,
So
aren't I? Sorry.
no, that's okay. So I've used broadcloth, and I've used basically a flat sheet.
Okay.
And I tried the microfiber sheets, and they suck, and I will never use them again because they pull and gather, and they don't sew properly, even with the right needle and foot and all that. And I'm like, you know what? And they shred too easily. I'm done. And it's hard to tell, and it's actually hard to tell which way I don't know what you call it, the grain of the fabric.
Yeah, the direction of the.
Yeah,
of the
it's hard to tell with it because it pulls in different ways depending on, like, you could have the same piece of fabric, you could be on one corner and it pulls one way, and go to the other side and it pulls the other way, and I'm like, forget this, never again.
Yeah, that's because microfiber is not a woven fabric in the way we think of woven fabrics.
Oh,
so it's being weird at you because it doesn't know how to fabric. Sorry.
Okay. No, that makes sense. I don't feel as bad now.
Yeah, it's not your fault. That's just how microfiber do. So when you're making tunics, you want to use something that's breathable. Cotton is a great choice. I use cotton and linen and wool if I really want to make something that is going to be warm. And in the thing, I just try to remind people to pre-wash your fabric, because if it's going to shrink funny, you want it to shrink funny before you make it into a thing. Okay, so the style of tunic we're going to talk about first is called a Skuldenheim tunic. And this is like the basis for all Viking tunics that you've ever seen. It's got a straight sleeve and an underarm gore. You had talked about that before. And it uses the stretch of a bias cut underarm gore to make that movement work. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. And I've seen people who are like, why do you even have that as a separate piece? You should just cut the tunic, like the sleeve out like that or something. And that's not the point. The point is to give there, so that, have you ever seen like fighter tunics that are cut a little too tight and they tear like on the top of the shoulder and then under the arm? It's called fighter's tear. And that's because they don't have enough ease in the shoulder. And adding that little bit of bias really helps.
Okay.
Okay, so going over how you cut a tunic generally, you want to take the measurement at the biggest part of the person's torso. And that is like how wide you should have the tunic, plus between 5 and 10 inches, depending on how big you want the tunic to fit on them. Okay. Now, the width of the body doesn't actually impact the way that it fits here, because you're going to cut in because usually you cut in the sleeves. But on this one, you have to sort of look at the way their shoulders are. Do you know how to figure out where your shoulder seam is?
No.
There's an easy trick. So put your finger on the shoulder. And if your finger moves, when you move your arm around like this, you're not far in enough. Here, doesn't move. So this is where the shoulder stops. It's here.
Wow.
So it's an easy trick on anybody, and you can always check to see when you're measuring for someone else or yourself that like that's how far apart they should be. And you should measure, as a lady, you want to measure your front and back separately, because you're going to have different widths. And if you're making a fighting tunic, you want to average those widths. And if you're making a more fitted tunic where you want it to be fitted around the front of your torso, because there's more stuff on the front of you than there is in the back of you, usually. And I know that a lot of ladies have the impressive badonkadonk, but it is that is handled by the gores. So you don't have to worry about adding the width of your hips and buttocks into the measurement of the tunic.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah, because I got the badonkadonk.
I'm gonna tell you exactly how to make that look awesome in a tunic. Sorry, I'm in Texas and it's still early for me and I just need to drink my tea. Okay.
That's okay. So how do you the gores handle like the hip and the thigh and the butt. What about like when you say that the largest part of the torso, if you got somebody who's got a quite a significant belly, like maternity type belly, where it's all in the front.
So what you want to do there is, so if you scroll down a little bit, it shows a cut diagram of the tunic like laid flat on the ground, and you see those gores there.
Yes.
So to make that fit them better, you can just raise the gores higher when you inset them. So you can put them right underneath the gore for the arm. Usually on a lady who is relatively boxy or has like a slimmer shape, I will tell people to put the gore about 3 fingers below your rib cage. That way it starts to spread just over the swell of your hips. For a gentleman, you can go a little, you can even go lower if they are box shaped. You can go like start insetting those gores around where their hips are.
Okay, that makes sense.
I'm sorry, 1 second. I fixed it, Kelly.
What happened? What did I do?
You were just looking around and you were in the
boxy thing. I'm sorry. I don't know apparently how to spotlight you. It doesn't work because Belle doesn't have their video on. I bet I can make myself work. So I can make that happen by logging in on my phone and my other computer. So
it's really okay. I think I got it because I just pinned my video.
Okay, that works too. Okay.
All right, so let's talk about the measurements, because you said that you were having some fit problems real quick.
Yeah.
All right. So when you make it, so that's the neckline part. We were talking about cutting the body panels. You want to make sure that you add between 3 and 4 inches to your body panel than you want it to be, because you're going to lose a little bit up here when you're doing the seam allowance. And you're going to lose a little bit at the hem as well. And you can always make a thing shorter, but you cannot make it longer unless you're like wicked cool with like adding trim to the bottom of weird things. So absolutely give yourself a little bit of leeway there. So when I made tunics all the time, I would do like there was a small and a medium and a large and an extra large. And like most people fit into about a 30-inch tunic, which is 2 panels of 30 inches wide fabric. For like bigger guys or like broad-shouldered individuals, I would use a 35-inch panel. And it really just, those are the 2 easy measurements. So usually it's like 30 by 45 is a good length for a tunic. If you like them to hit above your knee for a person who's about 5'7". And if you have a taller guy, you want to go 35 by 50 so that it hits above their knee. Like if you have somebody who's 6 foot to like 6'3".
Yeah, Coquer's, depending on the day, he's between 6'4" and 6'6".
Does he shrink sometimes?
Well, he's got a bad back, so the good days he can stand up a little bit straighter, and the bad days not so much. Like,
yeah, that's he's a big dude. You're gonna have to like we can talk about that, like specifically fitting him if you would like, after we go over like the basics in the class, if that is an issue that you're having fitting him.
Yeah, I think for me it's more the belly part because he's got the beer gut. He's skinny everywhere else except his belly. So
Okay. Yeah, adding more width to your gores and also adding extra gores will really help with that.
okay.
Because nobody ever said you could only have one. You can put 5 or 6 of those things in there and it's fine.
And also they can make a very twirly.
Oh yeah, it looks awesome because there's
does.
so much twirl.
Yeah.
It's like cheerleader skirt gone manly.
So it doesn't have to look like so it doesn't have to look like a reverse hourglass when you cut it then.
Oh
It-
no.
Okay,
Oh no, honey, you do not have to waste fabric like that. We're going to fix that for you.
good.
Okay. Encourage people to use the buddy system when taking measurements because you can never really get accurate measurements on yourself. All right, so to cut your tunic, you measure out your body panel the way you want it to be. And I'm going to start drawing on this pad of paper and let me know if those drawings don't make sense to you, okay?
Okay.
So you take your 2 body panels and you're going to fold them in half and line them up so that the 2 corners on the outside edge meet right here.
Okay.
Now you're going to cut your, the first cut I usually do is the neckline, but you have to remember that your neckline is not even front to back. Like if you look at your t-shirts, you see how the back of your scoop of your neckline is lower. That's because your head actually sits forward on your torso. So if you look at the cut diagram down here, there is a circle cut in the center of that thing, but it's off center. So you want about 1/3 of the circle in the back and 1/3 of the circle in the front. So in order to make those line up, I recommend you cut the shallower neckline first, and then you take these things apart and then you cut the deeper neckline.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yep. That part
It's
I've
just-
got. That part I've done well.
Great. Okay. Now you need to figure out your shoulder bit. Now with these, you don't have a shoulder bit, but what I really want to teach you is how to make a curved arm scythe. So if you could scroll down to the second tunic that is in there. Hi, sweetie.
Okay.
The second tunic that shows up is called the Hedgeby tunic because it was found around Hedgeby in Burka, which is this apparently awesome place in Sweden. I don't know. It was found around the 10th century. And so people in period that were trying to emulate or at least, try to be, had these tunics, and it's not like a weird modern construction thing at all. They have the benefit of fitting a lot better than your, if you make a flat, they get that bunch where you've got these folds at the top of your shoulder when you have like a flat shoulder seam.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is caused because you do not have what is called a shoulder slant cut. Okay.
Okay.
So if you scroll down to the curved arm scythe there, so you've got this cut here, and now you need to add the shoulder slant. For most people, this is about 2 inches. Okay.
Okay.
But you need to look at your guy and see how slanty his shoulders are. Kelly, for instance, don't got slanty shoulders. Hers are almost straight. So I always screw up making her tunics because she's got no shoulder slant. You got no shoulder slant, lady. And so this is the bit you want to cut. Now, when we were talking about measuring the shoulder, like how wide the shoulder seam needed to be earlier, that measurement from the neckline to the edge of the shoulder seam is how far this needs to be here. Okay. And now we're going to cut the arm scythe. When you're cutting a curved arm scythe, you need to measure down. For most people, this is about 8.5 inches. Okay.
Okay.
So measure down the thing. I know I'm getting it, and I know I'm not explaining, but you gotta.
Nope, I get it.
Okay, cool. All right, so go down about 8 inches, and you want to kind of sketch with chalk, or I use my kids' crayons to do this, and you sort of make a dog ear like this.
Okay.
And as long as this is the length of the shoulder, and this is about how big, around the side of his arm is, it's gonna fit very well. So you go around like this, but you might like, I encourage you to make a toile, like use throwaway fabric to try the first one. So you can make
Right.
a pattern that fits him correctly
Okay.
and yourself. Now these two pieces here and the neckline are almost the only wastage you get for this whole pattern. So you're really saving quite a lot of fabric.
Right.
All right. So when you're done cutting this out, you have an outline that looks sort of like this. And you're like, that's weird, but it's gonna be okay. All right. So you want to take a like floppy measuring tape and measure around the edge of this thing and save that measurement. Usually it's about 13. I don't know why it is, but it almost always is.
Okay.
And now we're going to talk about how you cut the sleeve to fit in that thing. But while we're doing it, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about sleeve construction so you can make other things other than this tunic. So sleeve construction for sleeves that have a seam on the underside of an arm, usually they look like this. They've got a sort of wedge shape. That's not really.
Yep. Nope. I get you.
I should probably write it. I should probably draw
That
it.
makes sense because that piece at the top makes the round part that's going to fit around the shoulder. So that makes sense.
Yeah, precisely. That's exactly what it looks like. Now, if you look at patterns that have sleeves on the back, all that is them rotating the seam so that it is here. So you take this bit and you put it over here, and that's why that sleeve looks like this. Are you coming with me?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so it's just moving the seam. So if you need to make something, like you need to draft your own sleeve pattern, you can draft a sleeve pattern that would just fit you like that, and then you can just rotate the sleeve. I've even, if it was particularly fitted, I've drafted it like this and sewn it together and then cut it apart where I wanted the seam to be, and then drafted that on the fabric.
Okay. Yeah, I think that for ease of me for basically the first time is it's going to be on the bottom. It's going to be.
I always do that for tunics, but like if you wanted to make like a fitted coat hardy or something like that later, that's the way you rotate that seam to a different place if you want to.
Okay.
Also with the fit of the tunic. So Fighty tunics are like the t-shirts of Amp-Guard. So what you've got is a very shallow seam top sleeve head. So that's pretty shallow. It's only about 2 inches, right? Now, if you look at a suit, those things go like, whoa, like way higher. And that makes it fit closer to the body and not sit outward like that.
Okay.
So the more severe the sleeve head is, the closer that fits to the body and the less like sort of looseness in the fit you get. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think we're going to go loose for him.
Sure. I just like, if you want to make something else later, this is how the mechanics of how those things work.
Like a dress or something, like a tunic dress or something. Okay.
Right. And if you were going to do like something with like flared sleeves or something, you just.
Or like a bell sleeve.
Yeah, you just flare it out the bottom.
Oh, okay.
So now you can do anything. Okay. Gores. Gores are triangular pieces of fabric that are inserted into seams or into the body of a garment to give it more ease. Now they can be tiny, there can be a million of them, or there can be just one. And you can put as much fabric in a gore as you want. And the only thing it really influences is the skirtiness of it, the voluminousness of the fabric. Now, if you want something to look expensive and well made, putting more fabric in it is an excellent way to do that. It doesn't actually cost you that much, and it makes the garment itself look better put together. I'm trying to tear a piece of paper without being obvious. Okay. So when you're making a gore, you need a rectangular of fabric. I usually use about 15 to 30 inches like a 15 by 30 inch square to make
Okay.
a gore. Now that depends on, like, if I'm making a dress, you want the width from where you want the gore to hang to the floor is your, like, how big you need that piece of rectangular fabric.
Okay.
If you want like little gores, you only need little ones. So just think about where you want to inset it in the tunic and where the hem of the tunic is, and then make roughly that size rectangle.
Okay.
And then you'll take the rectangle and you grab it by either corner. And you see how that folds there?
Yes.
Fabric does the same thing. And if you've got a stretchy fabric or something, if you iron the shit out of it first and let it cool, it will not stretch as much on you. Now it will
Okay.
stretch a little bit because this is a bias on the fabric, right? Because if you've cut this out of straight grain, this will stretch a little bit because it is on the bias. So ironing this helps a lot.
Okay. I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
When you do the fabric and you go that way, I know that fabric, if you go one direction, it pulls further than if you go the opposite direction for even a woven fabric.
Mhm.
Is it better to have the long part? Like, how do you situate so that you get that rectangle in the right direction?
So I cheat a little bit, and I usually only work with fabric that tears on straight lines.
Okay.
Good cottons do that. Linen does that. So you tear a rectangle in a straight line. You've got exactly the warp and the weft of the fabric, and then you grab it by the corners, let it fall, and iron that line.
Okay.
Now, usually cotton, it will shrink one direction more than it will the other, but if you've pre-washed the fabric, you shouldn't have as much problem with that.
Okay.
Since you're using fabrics that are kind of like you're using sheets and stuff like that, and sometimes you just don't know, sometimes you might have to experiment because you can't quite nail the provenance of what it's going to do. Because sometimes you'll have this gorgeous piece of fabric you really want to make into something, and it just is completely antagonistic toward whatever you're trying to do. And man, that sucks, because you really, like, this would be a really cool pair of pants or something, and you don't want to do that.
I bought a pair of brocade curtains that were really, really pretty. They were black and silver, and I made a pair of wrap pants out of them, and I put some pink satin on the edges, and the first time I wore them, my whole ass hung out because they split. I was like, okay, so this should have been backed with something else, obviously. So they're in my to fix, turn into something else project list.
So you can line that with like a cotton that has a very, like, does not like to move.
Yeah.
Like something that has a little polyester in it, like a Kona. And then you can do a lot of like straight stitch detailing to close up that hole and try to bind the fabric. But honestly, when you buy drapery and you try to make it hold up to movement and heat and moisture, sometimes it just doesn't do that, because it wasn't like, when you're making a fabric that has an elastical sense, it doesn't always want to be pants because it'll stretch and tear, and sometimes it's just the fabric and you have to start over, and that blows.
I learned my lesson. No more Goodwill brocade curtain finds.
No way. Sometimes you can find awesome stuff there. I still do, and it's great.
Yeah.
But
well, not
every
for
now
wrap
and then
pants.
it'll just maybe not wrap pants. Yeah. You don't want to trust your butt to like something that might break.
Yeah. I was lucky that I actually had leggings on underneath, so that helped. But I was very disappointed that I got less than one wear out of them.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's so hard.
Okay, early in my ant guard career, so I've learned my lesson.
Oh, I'm glad that that was not terrible and that you were okay.
Yeah.
Gores though.
Okay.
Gores.
Yep.
Cut along that line, and now you'll have two. And if the fabric is the same on both sides, you can just flip it over. And you
Okay.
can either sew this together and have one big gore, or you can use both of these as separate gores, and you can make several of them if you want to make long skinny ones, or you want to like change the color between them, all kinds of fun stuff like that. Kelly, are you wearing the dress I made you?
Yeah. You want to see it?
Yeah. Kelly's dress I made her
You totally
has
can't see it
like,
because my camera's is. Hang on, let's do this one time. Yeah, look at, oh, and I'm wearing. I put on leggings to make sure. Okay, real
so
quick,
that I can
Doris.
show off your tunic. No, I'm actually meant your knighting dress, the one that has.
Oh,
the
I do
one-
not. I'm not wearing that one. I can
Well,
go get
there-
it, but I
No,
don't
it's
know
okay.
where it is.
I was just going to show Belle like an example of like using gores as a decorative element in
That was, yeah,
costuming.
that is really cool. I can find it, but then you're gonna be all sad because I have worn it to its point where I shouldn't be wearing that as clothing.
Oh, I gotta make you a garb. Okay, so also, but when you're doing this, I would really recommend that you do it kind of like this, because then the grain travels the same direction and it'll flow and move the right way.
Okay.
And if you're only using one of these, it doesn't have to like, you're not like, that's not really a triangle. So if you fold it in half again, you'll get this little like bloop off the end, and you can just trim that. And then you don't have to worry about like having to cut off a whole bunch of extra or get your hem all wonky. You can inset it like this, and then you only have to like smooth the edges, or you can use the bottom of this as a decorative element in your tunic.
Oh, cool.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've always that's been something like the way that you did it, and you cut that small excess off. I've
Mhm.
always like taken a ruler and cut it straight, and then the hem doesn't sit right. So now I know
No,
why.
it pulls, and it like when you look at the bottom of a tunic, it should look like a curve because you want it to hang straight. Like, okay, so this tunic that I'm wearing, I'm gonna stand on a chair.
Which is beautiful, by the way.
Thank you. It was made by this guy from, I went through a thing where I was trying to make tunics. See how this one, like, it's flat on the bottom. So he did that on purpose. So it's like a shark bite on the bottom.
Okay.
And then this trim here is sewn to the edge and then flipped over and then appliqued. So it's a reverse applique trim treatment. They do that a lot in desert winds and in so this has gores added to it, and then they hang flat. But if you want a tunic to hang evenly, it really has to be like almost a semicircle on the bottom, so that when it hangs straight, they all hit at the same height.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And I had inadvertently, I had taken a class a while back, and I inadvertently did the shark bite, you said it's called. And I was like, nope, that doesn't work. So when I tried to even it out, it became too short.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's been trial and error for years, and ended up, I did make a tunic dress. It was a thrown together. I don't know if you've seen my Belle Golden Bow profile, but it's got a black stripe down the center, and then it's pink on the edges, and it literally was, it was 4 stitches. It was the sleeve all the way from the cuff of the sleeve all the way down to the hem on each side. That was 2 stitches, and then the neckline was 1 stitch, and the hem was 1 stitch, and that was the only sewing I did with it, other than putting the different color fabric together. And I still wear it, but it's a mess.
Oh man, I had this old party color tunic that's black on one side and blue on the other. And then it has like my very first shit applique from like 15 years ago on it. Still wear that thing.
Yeah, I
just went to go and look at your Facebook page so that I could see the dress you're talking about. Yeah, like it wears fine.
Yeah, it was made for Coquer.
I don't know who that is.
We had a pretty princess birthday party for him and another player, and they both had to wear dresses. So I made that knowing that he would wear it once and then I would have to wear it, and I had to take it in because I made it for the hips, but I had to take it in because I made it for his belly, and I ended up having to take it in because I was just swimming in it. So,
Oh, about your butt. So one of the ways that you can really make a tunic fit you very well is to do a seam all the way up the back. Do a seam all the way up the back, and then insert gores into the center back of the tunic.
like
And you
each butt cheek.
Huh?
Like on each butt cheek.
No, like one in the middle. So if you put
Okay.
one really, like when I'm making, have you seen Viking Hangarok, the apron dresses?
Yes.
Okay, so when I make those, I don't put a gore in the front. Like it's a 4-panel piece, and I don't put a gore in the front. I put big gores on the side and a really big one in the back. And then when you move, all of that swish goes to the back, and you're like, it looks excellent on everybody.
Yes, I need to do that then. I'm gonna need
So,
to do that then.
What do
That's
you
a great
suggest?
thing.
Hi.
Hi.
So I'm a no butt, no hip, thick-waisted person.
Mhm.
So what would you recommend? I mean, I buy Arm Street, but I would like to start making my own, and they have, of course, the gores and the gussets on the sides.
Yeah.
I don't have anything to. There's no body to swirl, so to say, like you're
No.
talking about. So what would you?
I don't
would you-
either. Like I'm shaped like an apple. I have 5 children. My last set was twins. I'm in my 40s. I'm like a head, and then it goes, and you don't have to have the body to make it look cool when you
Also,
move.
lies, Kristen.
Well, that's my question was, is how would you do, what construction would you recommend to compensate? I'm a 63-year-old woman. So, you know, but basically I've had, I guess you'd call the long rectile.
Rectangle?
Thank you. That was a slip. I don't know where that went with Freud, but okay. Rectangle type, just so, what would you recommend construction wise? Would it still be the gusset, the seam down the middle of the back and then a gusset going in, or would you recommend like the Arm Street ones, which I have been buying, that are on the sides? I mean,
You can
I'm
do
just
both.
kind of
Like, why not do both? Do big gores in the back, big gores on the sides. You can also do, if you're trying to break up your body shape. I used to do this by wearing a lot of party color tunics, where half is one color and half is the other. You can also do panels where you have like, one of my favorite old tunics has a stripe that goes over one shoulder. And it's smaller than my shoulder cut is, and it goes all the way down the tunic on both sides, and it completely breaks up the body shape. I've got big gores on the inside of the seam under my hip, and it's like a car with a racing stripe on it. And
okay. So would that be too flashy for a 63-year-old?
Who cares?
Oh my God!
That's great. You earned this. Go get them.
Yeah. Just because
Too flashy for a 63-year-old. Honey, you wear what you want.
I say to that, obviously you have not met Wheelock.
Yeah.
Oh, I know Dame Wheelock, and she follows me around because of my leather armor.
Oh.
No. Oh, no.
So
I have like a puppy. When she sees me, it's like she's forever by me.
So yeah,
I met Wheelock when I was 16 years old in 1997.
Oh, what an inspiration for you.
Well, can I tell you guys a story really quick? Okay, so
this
I'm
is
a little
being
kid.
recorded.
I already told it on that podcast thing. It's fine. Okay, so when I was a kid, I was 16, almost 17, and I told my parents, "Hey, I'm going to go on this trip to invade another kingdom." And they're like, "Well, where are you going?" I'm like, "I'm not really sure. I'm going to San Antonio, and I'm going to get on a bus." And they missed the "I'm going to get on a bus" part of the conversation. And I was like, I was so grounded when I got home. Anyway, we got on a bus and we drove from San Antonio to El Paso, which is where the Burning Lands is, which is the first kingdom of Amtgard. And we invaded them with 50 people. We showed up at their park on a Saturday morning and we're like, hi. And they're like, okay. Apparently somebody like had warned them that we were going to do this, and they called everybody, like every old as dirt dude from everywhere to show up. And it was really fun, and we had a battle, and they think they won and we think we won and we're right, but whatever. And Wheelock showed up like late in the day, and she's like, okay, everybody's coming to my house and we're gonna cook. So then we drove from El Paso to Wheelock's house in New Mexico to have dinner. And that's when I called my parents to check in. And they're like, you're where? Ah! I was in so much trouble.
Well, in your defense, you told.
I did tell them I was getting on a bus, but I was still grounded when I got home. Hi, Ellie.
Well, now that you have 5 children, what would you do if they did that?
I would try to pay better attention to the I'm getting on a bus.
Ah, okay.
But I
Yes,
also
the
would be mad.
details in sentences are quite important with kids.
Yes. It's all about the details. What's wrong, kiddo? Can you wait a second? I'm almost. What, sweetie? No, you have to like talk to me about it. You can't climb on my lap. I'm still teaching my class. Yes, you're very cute. Go play for about 15 more minutes and then you can come and talk to me about it, okay?
Would you mind talking about neck openings?
Oh, yes, of course. Okay, so I had an aneurysm last year, or yeah, I guess it was last year. And I'm still having trouble with 3-dimensional construction. So this might be a little disjointed, but I think actually talking about it with you will be helpful for me.
Okay.
Okay, so we talked about earlier how you want to set the neckline further forward on the front of the torso than the back. Madam Ismelda, if you look at the chat on the side, there is a Google Doc.
Oh, how do I find that?
It's
Sorry.
right, no problem. It's right on the side there, and it's got like a
It's
tutorial
not
on
on
3 different
what
styles of
side?
tunics.
I'm on an iPhone, so.
Okay, well, I can link it
go
to
to
you.
you're on your phone. I say if you went to the website, the handout is now on the website, but you're on your iPhone, and I don't know if you can do that on an iPhone.
So I'm on my phone as well, and there's at the bottom, for me, it's not an iPhone, but where you have mute and start video and share, there's a more, and when you click on that, there's the chat in there, and you go to
Oh,
the chat
I
from
found
there.
it. Oh, you're awesome. You're awesome. Sorry.
Okay, cool.
It's easy to get excited when you're my age.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
One of the things, the one that I posted, there's the credit one, so you didn't credit, but there's the other one is the link to that. So
Okay.
Oh, it keeps just going to the credit one.
yeah, there's another one. I can repost that real quick. Hang on.
All right. So this is what your tunic looks like when you're laying the front body part down and the back part down.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Now, when I line tunic necklines, I always sew the facing to the front and the back separately. This is not as professional, and you might get docked points if you were to enter it into arts and sciences, because it does lead to a lot of bulk on this seam because you're essentially sewing 4 pieces of fabric together.
Mhm.
I always screw it up somehow and don't quite get this angle correct, but you can just lay your tunic on top of your facing fabric and kind of cut out the shape that you want.
Mhm.
And what you do is you sew it right side to right side if you want the facing to be on the inside. And if you want the facing to be on the outside, like a decorative facing that's like a contrast or something for a keyhole
Mhm.
neckline, you lay it on the inside. You lay it on the inside, and you want that to be the right side of the facing fabric facing the wrong side of the tunic.
Correct. So what about the like an opening? Yeah, right there where your finger is.
You make the keyhole, you do not cut this ahead of time. Okay.
Oh,
Do not cut this ahead of time. You put on your facing fabric, you start to sew around, You
Mhm.
have marked where you want the keyhole to be with crayon or something. And then you
Okay.
sew around the keyhole place. And
So
all the way
almost
back
like
the other way.
steeping. I don't know if you're a fiber person, but
Mhm.
like you would do if you're going to cut a piece of knitting, you
Yeah, you
Okay.
surround it with stabilizing
Yes.
stitches before you do
Yes.
that. And you want to make sure that you're very tight on this, because if you have, the further you cut into like over here, or if you make a mistake at the bottom, it's going to show. So be
Mhm.
very, very careful as you sew around this thing. You want to make it as tight to the edge as possible, and you want to make your stitches quite small. So if you can adjust the stitches on your machine, you want to
Mhm.
turn them pretty small. So
Okay,
that it's
when you
very
say very close, do you mean
quarter of an inch at most.
where you anticipate the keyhole being?
Yes.
Okay.
And then you take your scissors and you cut this out, and you want
Okay.
to trim. I've already drawn on this too much. Hold on.
All right, new piece of paper.
I need a new piece of paper, quick.
That's why you need whiteboard.
I had one, and then I have a son who's autistic, and he stole it. And then he only wanted to have one picture on it. Now, if I draw anything else on that thing, he's like,
So many
"Why did
extra
you remove
whiteboards.
Reptar? We cannot have this." Okay, so you got the hard neckline of the tunic. Let me see if I've got a different pen here. You mark this ahead of time so that it's just a straight line, and then you sew around here and then around there that you cannot see, and then around there. Okay, but the very bottom of this thing, do you guys know how to turn a very tight curve?
Well, that's what I was going to kind of ask you if you had
Yeah,
any
you have
tips
to
on
kind
that.
of trim into the corners of however far you've cut it,
Mm-hmm.
and very carefully get almost up to that edge so that it turns evenly.
All right,
Then
would you be doing notching? Is that what you're referring
yes.
to? Okay.
Sorry, self-taught seamstress, always using the wrong words.
I want to give you just a heads up real quick. We're about 10 minutes out. So you know.
Thanks, Kelly.
I'm sorry, I'm taking it probably with too many
no,
questions.
this
No,
is
you're
what it's
not.
for.
I
This
am
is
here
exactly
to
what we
serve
need.
you and Belle, and those are the questions I want to answer. So I'm delighted that you're asking the ones you need.
And it's one that I had as well, so this is perfect.
Oh, okay, good.
Okay, so once this is turned, the easiest way to turn fabric. Now, I do a lot of linen, so I always have kind of a water bottle around anyway, because
Right.
linen doesn't do anything unless it's a little bit damp. But if you wet this edge and then turn it with your fingers and you kind of rub it together until you get the seam line is exposed there, and you do that all the way around the edge, and then you iron the crap out of it. Now you can.
So are you ironing to turn the edge so that that's going to be the, like, I'm going to call it, for lack of a better word right now, the hem. So not the hem, but
it's like you welt a pocket. It's you want to turn this, it'll have so if you haven't, I need a different pen that shows up and I don't have one.
So you're ironing the seam real tight.
Yes, you're ironing the seam really tight.
Okay.
And then you can top stitch on top of it in a matching or contrasting thread to like keep that where it is. I always do a bunch of lines of thread because I don't like to have to iron anything once it's sewn. I want it to be where it's supposed to be. I want to be able to throw it in a bag and not worry about it. So I will do decorative stitching around the edges of everything like this. And sometimes I do keyhole patterns. And then if you have it on the outside, what I do is stitch along the edge and then satin stitch on top. Or you can do turned edge applique there, where you stitch on top and then turn the edge under. I have a different tutorial on different kinds of applique.
Oh, you're going to be doing the applique one?
Oh no, one of my grand squires is doing that, Runa. Okay. But I'm happy to share that tutorial with you as well if you would like.
Well, that's up to
Kelly,
Belle.
can you do that for me?
Oh, okay.
So you can do decorative, if you're doing it on the outside, you can do decorative stitching. If I have it on the inside, I have a thing for like having a long keyhole, and then I'll face the inside of the neckline with a different color so that when it moves and opens, you get a little flash of like a contrasting color as a detail. And then you can just like, you can serge the edge, or you can satin stitch the edge and then just stitch it down as part of the trim on the outside. Thank you, Kelly.
Okay. I have, well, I don't know if it's the right, this is all my ANS tutorial things that I have on my website, and I think it's on there at some point. So feel free, because I'm pretty sure I have all of your, it's your applique tutorial one. Hang
I
on.
think so, but I'm
One by Lady
not gonna look for it
Armstrong,
right now because we only have a couple more minutes. Okay,
All
so
right.
after you've done the front and the back in the same way, you iron them either outside or inside, whichever one you want. And if you have like if you have the stuff on the outside, I would recommend putting the shoulders together first before you sew them together, because this gets quite bulky and can stick out quite a lot. I even will sometimes hand sew this stitch to get the shoulder seam where it meets together, because I just cannot for the life of me get that to lay flat when I do it on a machine, because there's something about like the angle, and especially if you're using different kinds of fabric. Like I usually face something in a lighter weight than the body of the tunic, and it will stretch and move differently. So even if you cut it perfectly, sometimes it will not do what you want it to do.
Right.
So I usually hand sew that closed, and then you can lay the tunic down and sew the edges down. You can also.
So you're basically basting it on then.
Yes.
Okay.
And then you can sew the edge down however you'd like. I have after the class is over, I don't know if I'm friends with you yet on Facebook, Miss Madame Esmeralda. I'm sorry. Madame
No, you're
Esmeralda?
not.
Do you want to be friends?
Esmeralda. Sure.
Okay, so I will go friend you on Facebook. I'm already friends with Bella.
I can, hang on, I'll put Kristen's email, not email, your website.
And then I'll
Facebook.
send you some examples of the facing that I've done.
Oh,
so you
you're
can look
so
at it.
kind.
And then you can
Perfect.
see if that works for you, and you can build on it or not, or like, I always think that like having more examples is good, because you're going to take whatever I give you and you're going to make it your own. And like knowing more about what is possible and like what is out there, like allows you to build like upon it, you know?
Now,
Okay.
do you double satin when you do satin?
Yeah.
Because in our kingdom, I've heard criticism of people who don't.
I've heard criticism of people who don't do this, and like it really depends on your machine and like what kind of stitching it can produce. Some of the more modern machines, like later Vikings, don't even like have a good satin stitch, and I'm like, why? I need that to live. I have a Janome, and I use a wider stitch, and then I go over it a second time. It really gives you a much smoother and cleaner line. I'm just not a very careful person, and it really like, it just clears a multitude of sins.
Okay. So there's a legitimate, I'm going to use the term gripe if it's only done once.
If it's only done once and it's done very well, it's great. It just shows all your imperfections, and I just do it twice because that just makes it easier for me.
Well, you're a very vibrant teacher.
Thank you. I think.
That was positive. That was
okay.
no, that was.
I'm
oh my word! Everybody interprets everything. Everybody interprets things anymore, and it's like, no, I meant, vibrant, passionate, happy, jubilant.
Well, it's very sweet of you. I'm really glad you guys came to my class. Do you have any other questions? We have about 4 minutes. Bella, you got anything else?
Do you recommend, if you don't have soldier, do you recommend doing the French seam or something else when you're putting it together?
Oh God, I'm always in trouble for this. I do not French seam things. That is obnoxious.
Ooh.
It sucks. Ooh. I hate doing that. I also hate doing the like, wait, is that French seaming when you have the pieces that go together like this? Is that a rolled seam? See, self-taught, you don't
Yeah.
know.
I don't know
Uh,
because I also am self-taught.
A French seam
Medium
is
is-
basically self-enclosed.
Hang on, I got it.
Yeah.
So you
So
sew
it looks fantastic. I'm dyslexic. I am constantly doing it the wrong way. And it drives me insane. Like I cannot get that shit to go together correctly. Excuse my language.
So this is the one that I do. When you sew it together, these are so like that, and then you kind of go "Roop," and imagine that my fingers are inside
Yes.
now, and that's a French seam.
Yeah.
And then you sew
It
that
looks
down.
fantastic and it holds together very well. I sew my seams, I serge my seams, and then I iron flat and I top stitch them. Mostly because I like the way top stitching
Okay.
looks. Now, I don't catch any flack for that, but I'm in the Celestial Kingdom and I
Y'all
don't
are rebels.
Know.
Y'all are rebels.
Huh? No, I just was an early seamstress in my kingdom, so I got to set the rules for how that was going to work.
Ah,
Gotcha.
It's a perfectly acceptable and clean way to have your tunics go together, and as long as your edges are overcast, who gives a crap? I don't understand.
I don't know. One of our, and I was not there. I was not present to see this, but this is the example the judges give, is that they took two tunics. One was French seamed and one was done the way you do it,
Mhm.
and pulled and yanked on it and showed how one rips and one doesn't.
It's the same number of stitches. I don't believe that.
That's just what I was told, and that was
Who
why
said
they.
that? Because I will go find them.
No, I'm not going to do that.
No,
I'm
tell me
sorry.
seriously. I'll go get them.
We have some very verbally picky judges here.
This is a safe space. You can PM me and let me know because I will go get them because that is not cool.
I don't think it's cool destroying somebody's.
No,
Yep.
never. Like that is never okay, ever, ever. But also gatekeeping this weird thing about how they like to do their tunics.
Agreed.
Like if the tunic is held together appropriately, the insides look neat and they're not dropping threads everywhere. There is no reason to be weird about it. And I do not think that French seaming is appropriate always. There are lots and lots of times where you don't want a French seam because it adds bulk and stiffness to your piece. And now it is 11 o'clock.
Yeah, I would say, by the way, sorry, it is now time. This is me going, no, stop.
And I have to go moderate another class, but it was really nice to talk to you guys. And I will be clearing out of here so that I can go and help with the other one.
Thank you so much.
She's going to tell me where
Yes,
to go.
thank
Yeah.
you.
And if you guys have any more questions, feel free to PM me. I'm on the Facebooks all the time, and I'm happy to chat about this stuff.
Thank you
thank
very
you.
much. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Guys, thank you for learning with me today.
Thank you. I'm going to jump back to the main room myself too. Oh, first I'm going to